Let me ask you a question. How do you feel if you find out today that someone tomorrow wants to have access to your browser history? This means that all the browser history, everything you've been searching for on Google and ChatGPT, or the prompts you've been making, someone else tomorrow will have access to look at all that data. Would you willingly give that to them? Would you give away and say, hey, look at all my browser history here? Or you're more likely going to say no? My guess is that most people wouldn't feel comfortable with that. Therefore, they would say no. If you say no to that question, are you a bad person? Like, what are you hiding? Because there are other people who would say, well, if you have nothing to hide, what is it a problem for you to expose your browser history? And this is where the question of privacy comes in. And this is the most popular question when it comes to CBDCs, but it's not the only thing. And I've seen several videos online, people talk about CBDCs, and most of them get them wrong. They don't really understand the full spec of what CBDCs represent and the capabilities and how they're going to shape humanity like never before. My name is Great BTC, and I am the most qualified person to talk about this because I have been using digital currencies for a long time, for years, before the word or before CBDCs were even thought of, right?
Yo, what's up, guys? What's up? My name is Hardcore Crypto, and I am the hustler on the blockchain hustler.
I've been doing cryptocurrencies for a while, so I do know a lot of things about digital currencies. If you are new to this subject, CBDCs represent central bank digital currencies. These are digital currencies that are issued by central banks. Central banks basically play a role in governing or government. They're an arm of the government, even though in some countries they're private entities, but they take control of the money supply, and controlling or maintaining prices and things like that. But firstly, before we look into the dark side of CBDCs and the kind of risk they impose of the majority, especially the poor people of the world, let's first understand what digital currencies are and how are they different from, say, traditional currencies. You have to understand that the traditional currencies, let's say the US dollar, they're controlled by the central bank in America. And for you to use it in a digital format, you have to connect to a system that corresponds to the American central bank system. That means you have to open an account with a bank, or you have to get an account with a financial service provider like PayPal. That also is technically kind of a bank because it has a bank behind it that takes care of settlements of those transactions, all right? And for you to get hold of an account like PayPal, you have to go through a long, lengthy process of how it works because each bank or entity, basically it's operating on its own. And in fact, the functions of a bank or an app like PayPal might not always correspond directly with what's going on at the central bank level, which is where the money is printed, right? So the central bank, even though it's responsible for pushing out currency, they have limited control over it because of these other entities around it that are supposedly supposed to take care of the currencies or the flow of money around the jurisdiction. Now comes digital currency. The closest thing that's easier to understand when it comes to a digital currency, it's something like Bitcoin. Digital currencies are more like cash in their nature. They can be thrown around everywhere. You can get cash, you can keep it under your pillow, you can keep it under your bed, in your shoes. I mean, people put cash in all these weird places that they want to, right? Because it's physical, and whoever created the cash has a limited control over it, right? So digital currencies are similar to that they're programmable, number one, but they also operate in a way as cash because they can be stored in any other place that might not be approved by the regulator. For example, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin can be stored in a wallet that is officially created by Coinbase or Binance. But also, I can just wake up right now and create my own wallet today, call it the Great BTC wallet, and I would store my digital currency in that wallet. But I cannot do that with US dollars. I cannot just create another PayPal and therefore I'm able to receive US dollars and do whatever I want. That is one of the fundamental differences in the simplified way of how you can onboard someone into the digital currency. Digital currencies do not need the user to have a bank account. All they need to have is download an application and they can receive and cent currency. So this is a simplified version of a digital currency and the fiat money system or the traditional currency, but I hope it gives you an understanding of how they flow in the economy. Digital currencies are more free flow. Someone else in Zimbabwe has Bitcoin in their wallet, just like someone else in America has Bitcoin in their wallet. Now, it has been common sense that the governments have been pushing against digital currencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and USDT and several others. Why did they just turn back and instantly decided to go for digital currencies? Which countries are trying to do their own digital currencies? It's a lot. From the US government, they're working on their own digital currency. China has already been at it for a long time. And you're also looking at the Central Bank of England is working on its own, and the EU is looking into that as well. I mean, Nigeria already launched a digital currency, a CBDC. So it's coming from all the fronts. And one of the reasons is that these governments realized that they were losing the battle to crypto. They first underestimated how much efficient crypto was, and they saw it in the emerging economies that people are literally throwing out cash or the traditional banking and they're basically jumping onto crypto. And still, they didn't understand how they could exploit it until recently they found out that actually, if you create a digital currency and make it so easy for people to use, you actually gain more control, because what they don't like about crypto is that it takes away control from them. So launching a digital currency means that they will be able to launch their own crypto, that they have so much control over it that it will give them a super godly power. And that's what they've been earning for. Now, let's look at what kind of powers would a government have. What would they be able to do with digital currencies when it's a matter of when they launch the digital currency. But you have to understand that money runs the world. Of course, there are exceptions. Beyonce would tell you that girls runs the world, but you have to understand that money runs the world. Everything is built around it. And government want to get hold of your money to do whatever the hell they want to do, all right? So there are several factors that are growing, several trends that are growing, and the ultimate goal is basically going to be total control of the money by the government. One of them is basically censorship. We have already seen what has been happening in several other countries, or even on social media. Cancel culture became a real phenomenon that civilization have to deal with. You don't like something that someone says, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take down your Twitter account and your Instagram account, and your bank account get frozen, and on and on. Some governments have been able to even turn off the internet entirely. In Nigeria, they banned Twitter before. In Zimbabwe, there was a day the government literally turned off the internet because they didn't want people to communicate. And another example, also more extreme, in Nigeria, there was a protest at some point a few years ago, and the government actually shut down the bank account. They told the bank to say, hey, shut down this bank account, because these people who are protesting, they're able to raise money using this bank account. Now, that was a process and it's lengthy. Sometimes the governments themselves have to go through the court to be able to do something like that. But if they launch a digital currency, they can simply freeze that receiving account directly, or they can also censor you and say, look, anyone who contributes to this bank account will be punished. But because these central bank digital currencies are programmable, you can be able to say, look, please mark everybody or report everybody who send money to this account. Or you can say, any transaction that goes to this account should not be successful. And then that's how you can shut down oppositions. You can shut down people you don't like. This could place a threat to democracy in a real sense because of the digital currencies. Another one is that money would now have an expiry date. So when the CBDCs are launched, you have to prepare for having money that has expiry date. If you don't understand this, governments do not like people to save money, to have money. They want you to spend, because that's how the system that was created is based on you spending money, being the consumer all the time, working, and then you got to spend it. That's why they don't like deflationary currencies such as Bitcoin, because they encourage people to hold, because the money is more likely to grow over time. They don't like gold either because of the same concept. Now, if they see that you're not spending enough, what they will do, they're just going to say, all the CBDCs that have been rolled out will have an expiry date of 3 years, let's say. This would definitely encourage more people to spend, and the central bank would justify this by saying that we're trying to curb inflation or to basically instigate economic growth and whatever nonsense they can come up with. But the idea is that this is very difficult to implement right now, because if you have cash, well, it's so difficult if you start putting expiry dates on cash and then people have to look, is this note expired? It's very difficult. But in a digital sense, it's very, very easy. You received a transaction, you're supposed to spend it within 3 years. This can easily be implemented, and it will mark a new paradigm for humanity. Another form of control that will come because of CBDCs will be censoring of certain products that the government may not like. So they could ban a certain type of wine or alcohol or cigarettes, or it can be a good thing. Or they can say that we don't want our people to be watching Netflix. We hate Netflix. Therefore, everybody in this country should not be allowed to make payment on Netflix. Banned. I mean, this already happens in some form or another. Gambling, most countries or a few countries actually censored gambling platforms that you're not allowed to use your credit card from the bank to pay for the gambling services, right? So, you can have a debate on whether that's a good or bad thing, but it can happen on anything. They can say that, you are not allowed to buy Chinese products. Therefore, anything from China, you cannot purchase it because we say so, all right? Or you're not allowed to go and seek alternative medicine of a certain company that they don't like. You have to take these vaccines that we told you to take. If you want to take another vaccine that we don't really allow, that is another form of control that the government will try to impose through CBDCs, because it's easy to do that. And you guys know absolute power corrupts. The point when the government can simply press a button and something is going to happen, I mean, you better expect it, that they will use these powers to their advantage. Another form of control that will come because of CBDCs is through UBI and the social credit system. What does this mean? You guys already heard about UBI. This is Universal Basic Income. As the world is becoming more digitalized and AI is taking over, we're definitely going to reach at a point where we don't always have to work. We have a welfare state or a welfare package where everybody gets, let's say, $1,000 a month from the government, and they can live off that if they want. Now, a lot of people, these kind of systems will make a lot more people poor, just so that you know, by the way. Even though a lot of people say, if we have more warfare, people will do well. Actually, it's the opposite. The more free things you get, people will become more lazier and more dependent on government, and it will reach at a point where a lot of people are unable to do anything or to stand on their own. Government is what they know. You have already seen this to some extent in South Africa and other states, where the country is becoming more of a welfare state, and then people just vote for whoever gives them $20 a month simply because they have no any other ways to make it. Now, with UBI, the government can be tracking specific behaviors, right, and penalize you through that system and say, well, if you said something that the government didn't like, let's say with the controversial topic right now, what's happening with LGBTQ and all these topics, right? Let's say the government believes that there are 600 genders in the world, and you say, no, I believe that there are only 2 genders. Well, according to the social credit system, the government can penalize you. Instead of getting $1,000 per month, that month you're going to get $800. You see, so this is how you can socially engineer society to start thinking in a certain way by punishing people to believe in a certain way. If this sounds like it's too much out there, well, it's already happening on social media. Like, how many celebrities out there who have big accounts will never be able to tell you what they think about certain topics, or will never give you a straight answer because they're scared of simply being cancelled off these platforms. And this with CBDCs will happen in a level where you have never seen before, because if they discover somewhere that you're doing something that they don't recommend, they can simply press a button, and the wallet that you're keeping your CBDCs that's attached to your national identity immediately gets frozen because you said something negative about the government or whatever the context is, right? So that's another form of control. UBI will have a social credit score, which is going to be linked to your wallet, and you get penalized directly, whether you had a fine on the road. Right now, if you get a fine from the government, you can go and appeal first, and then you can go ahead and pay cash. Or sometimes you might not even pay for it. The consequences are not that directly insane. But once the government has direct mandate on your money, it will be like taxes. You do X, we simply just collect the money the way we want it, right? And lastly, the most powerful form of control that will come because of CBDCs are taxes to fund wars and corruption. If you guys think that corruption is rampant right now or war is way too much, wait until CBDCs are launched. This is going to get worse. For some of you might not know, America used to not pay any taxes at all. Taxes were introduced because the government was trying to raise money to go to war, and the agreement was that after the war, we're going to get back to normal. You don't have to pay anything to the government. A lot of people cannot understand this because they believe that, the taxes is what we use to pave roads and take care of the countries and pay for police and all these services. Look, society existed before taxes. Perfectly fine, right? But currently, the taxes is what we use to pay for private jets for the politicians, a little bit of money into the police and the school system, even though they're crap, we just accept it. And if you're American or European, it's what you're using to fund wars around the world. Even what's going on right now in Ukraine, that's your tax money where the politicians and the elites decides which direction the money should be going. This process, however, is still difficult because you can only collect X amount of money per taxes. People has clever ways of dodging taxes now or avoiding taxes. They might not pay as much taxes as they should. According to the government, they always want more money. Now, imagine a scenario where all these corrupt politicians now have an easier way to collect taxes by simply pressing a button. They can just say, today we're going to claim $10 from every citizen who has more than $200 in their account because we want to go to war to protect you guys. And they just press a button. All the money is gone in the government's account, and they can go and spend it the way, however they want. And if you are coming from a country where in the third world, where the governments are basically irresponsible with money, just like all governments anyway, they spend it terribly and there's no results, expect more of that. Government power will be even more attractive to bureaucrats and lazy people of society because it's easy money. They get it for free and they have the easiest way to collect money and they can do whatever they want. So expect more taxes, easier to collect than ever before. Right now, it's still easier for them because before you get your paycheck after work, your government has to collect their tax and they withhold it with your employer. So you don't actually get your full salary. Everybody knows this. You get a portion because they say X amount is going to the taxes. This time around, it will just be a button and the government will also collect more money from you, all right? And I think this, to me, is the most dangerous of them all. If you're going to give government this level of power, I think you're not ready for the consequences. It means more wars, more control, and more surveillance states that are just going to grow exponentially. And I think we have to do something about it. There is a way, by the way, and this is using cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are digital currencies. Basically, it's almost like the first digital currencies that operate outside of the government rails. Whether the government like them or not, they still exist. And all it takes is yourself to educate yourself and your family about them and how you can use them. If you ever met a rich person, all the rich people that I've ever met, whether in Europe, Africa, in the Middle East, everywhere, they tell me one thing in common. Taxes are for idiots or taxes are for losers, right? And a lot of people are poor because of taxes. But if you think about it, if you have been working for 30 years and you have been losing 15 or 20% of your income, I mean, imagine if that money went into a savings account or an investment of yourself. So what you can do, basically, you have to find ways to protect yourself from these culprits when they're coming. And a lot of middle class do not know how to avoid taxes. They just basically pay and accept the hit. But if you look at the wealthy people, they already know how to play the game. And that's why a lot more wealthy people are also understanding crypto a lot more than the average guy on the street. Why? They pay attention. So if you want to protect yourself and create another rail that is not associated with government directly, you can use cryptocurrency. You can learn this from cryptouniversity.network, and you can put a stop to the CBDCs before they come for your money, because there is no way that this is going to make you any richer. CBDCs are not going to make you any richer. If anything, they're just going to make the poor even more poorer, because the more you control the free market, it makes it worse for the small guy. It only benefits the bigger guys. That's just how it has always been. So CBDCs and anything that gives more control to government is not good for the people. It's good for only the elites, because the regulation is basically designed to protect, you guessed it, the elites themselves. So learn cryptocurrency today. Go to cryptouniversity.network and find an alternative. Using cryptocurrency is like having a Swiss bank account. And you heard of Swiss bank accounts. Who have Swiss bank accounts? The rich people. They have bank accounts in different islands and different countries. They basically are associated in different jurisdictions. They call it offshore accounts. Having a crypto account, it's similar to having an offshore account. While having a CBDC wallet or a CBDC account is basically similar to having a prison account. It's not freedom. So I recommend you go to cryptouniversity.network right now and learn how cryptocurrencies work. Embrace it so that when they're dropping all these CBDCs, you have an alternative model of operation that's global and even superior to the CBDCs, and nobody's gonna come and censor you, all right? Thank you guys for watching. I hope you appreciate this video, and I hope everything I said here made sense. I didn't make this video to fearmonger anyone, but if you have any brains, you can put 2 + 2 together and see exactly what I'm saying and how powerful these CBDCs are and how they will be used for the worst of humanity. It's not good for you. You have to remember that. Peace.